Okay, so I'm doing Italian meringue buttercream, which you guys have on Canvas, the recipe. You'll need a scale for it. I'm gonna do basic splitting of a cake and just super basic stacking and icing. There's more in-depth stuff on Liz Merrick's page, the Sugar Geeks page, if you need it, or I can help you find stuff too. So I have over here I'm doing a double recipe so I can show you guys a couple different cakes. So I have 2 pounds of sugar and 6 ounces of water in here. I have it on high. When you guys put your sugar and water in your pot, make sure your pot's super clean. Make sure what you stir it with is super clean. If it has any sort of fat or residue on any of it, then the sugar will crystallize. So wash your pot, wash your utensil that you stir with. You have to stir up the sugar and water. Otherwise it will caramelize on the bottom in big lumps, and as annoying as that is, it's easier just to stir it in the beginning, and I did that already today because I was in a hurry, and so I had to start over. So in the pot, sugar and water, have it on at least medium high at home, and for the first like 2 minutes keep a lid on it. That will help the condensation will wipe down the sides of the pot. Make sure you have a big enough pot. If you're doing a double batch, have a bigger pot than I have here because mine boiled over. So lid on the top for the first 2 to 3 minutes, and then you need to have a thermometer. So you need to have a thermometer that reads up to 240 degrees. If you need a thermometer, let me know. I have some here. I think I'm right at like 230 right now. I'm very close. And then in my mixer, I have, and be careful of the steam on this too. In my mixer, I have just egg whites. I just bought the carton egg whites at the store. You can buy them next to the eggs, and they're totally fine. They don't work for French almond macarons, but they work for frostings. So try to find that. So that's what I got at the store. So just the carton egg whites. In a double batch, so each egg white is 1 ounce. So for the recipe, it calls for 8 ounces, or 8 egg whites, sorry, and that's 8 ounces. So that, if that helps you, I bought them at Safeway, but I know they sell them at New Seasons too, probably Whole Foods as well. So you're gonna get your egg whites in here, in your mixer, and you're gonna beat them until they're frothy. My mixer's broken, so I don't necessarily want to show you that. Just frothy. You don't want to see like that opaque look to them. You want them all to be frothy. And then we're gonna pour the sugar syrup down the side. But while you're waiting, you could split your cakes. So I just did the mayonnaise cake, and I'm gonna show you guys how to split them. I noticed in some of your chef portrait cakes, they were a little bit domed on the top. So if you want those nice straight edges, which you probably do, this is the way to go. So this is how I do it. There's probably tons of videos out there that will show you different ways to do this. This is how I found it to be the easiest. I'm not super great at cakes. I'm not bad, but I'm not great. And I've practiced a lot, so this is what is easiest for me. So I take a serrated knife like that with the teeth on it, and I make a line right where, so see this is domed, right where I see that it's flat, I just draw a line with the teeth of my knife all the way around. So it's barely going in to the cake. So all the way around until it hits that first mark I made. And then I'm gonna keep turning. So I'm going towards myself with this serrated knife. You need to be really careful. Make sure your knife is laying flat in the cake. Don't curve it up or down. And you're just letting the teeth and the knife do the work and the spinning. So you all have these cake turntables that I loaned you. So then that'll come off. That can be your snack, or make cake pops with it if you want. So this is a really high cake layer. I'm gonna split that in half. So I'm gonna do it the same way. So I'm gonna mark right in the middle there, and then I'm just gonna turn, 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 barely going in, like 1/4 of an inch. And then you'll meet up with that first line you made, and gradually your knife will just go in a little bit further, a little bit further. And you can put your finger, your index finger right here, sometimes that's helpful for me, and spin until they're separated. So now I have 2 layers here. So there's 1 cake, and I'm gonna do it on the next layer, but I'm gonna check my my sugar syrup real quick, see where I'm at. So don't let this go too far. If you let it go too far without paying attention to it, then you're gonna make caramel. And that's a bummer because then you'll have to start all over again. So I'm at 139, 138, so it's gonna give it just a minute. I bet you once I get done with this one, it'll be good. So same thing, I already cut off the top. I'm gonna find my middle here, and then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna turn, 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 just about 1/4 of an inch, turn, turn, and careful because this isn't like sticking to anything, so that's still moving. Turn, turn, and naturally the knife's just gonna cut in. It's not quite there yet. Gotta get it through the middle. So there. It's a little harder once you guys do that chiffon cake. It's a little bit harder to get through because the chiffon cake is so delicate. Really let the teeth of the knife work on that one. Don't put any pressure into it. If you put pressure into it, then you're gonna see those marks. So let the teeth of the knife do that. So now I have 2 cakes split. I'm gonna show you that top one again. So make your mark, see where it domes, find where it's flat, make your mark all the way around. So this is that mayonnaise cake recipe that I've given you guys. This is 1 batch, so it made 4 6-inch round cakes that I'm gonna make 2 6-inch birthday cakes with. Now I'm gonna split this in half, make my mark, and turn it. So I made a roll cake with the rest of my batter. Otherwise this little guy would have been taller. So it will actually bake that for you guys if you were wondering that. I'm gonna check my sugar syrup. And I am there. So you're gonna get your mixer going and get your eggs frothing. And this is really important. I'm gonna wash my hands really fast. This is the hardest part of it. So you're going to 240 degrees. Remember, when you're taking the temperature of the sugar syrup, you're being really careful to avoid that steam, because steam burns are a real bummer. So you're gonna get this going on, I have it on 6, you could probably go, yeah, we'll go to 8, as much as we're gonna do. And then you need 2 pinches of salt. So 2 pinches of salt, and then I'm gonna hold this sugar syrup on the, I'm gonna rest it on the side of the bowl, and I'm just gonna do a steady stream all the way in. So really slow, steady stream. Hopefully you can see that. Super slow at first, because if you don't, you're gonna cook those eggs and you're gonna have little bits and pieces of egg white, which is kind of gross, not gonna lie. So steady stream. You guys might want to have like a oven mitt or something holding to hold it if it gets a little hot for you. So I'm doing a double batch, and I don't want to have it going crazy fast, otherwise it's going to spray up at me. So I remember I have it at 8, and I'm just doing a slow, steady stream in between that whisk and the bowl. If you do it right against the bowl, it's stainless steel and it's gonna seize out the sugar, and it's a pain to clean. So try to do a steady stream right between that whisk and the bowl. Slow, steady stream. Okay, so I have all of my sugar in there. And then get this pot. Okay, I moved it up, but I'm gonna watch it and make sure it doesn't fly out. Because I guess that would make you guys laugh. So I'm gonna get this pot in some water real fast so it doesn't seize up on it. It'll make it a lot easier to clean. If you have chunks on the bottom that aren't coming off, just put some water in there and boil it out. That's the easiest way to clean out a pot, is to boil it out on the stove. This isn't gonna be too bad. There's no, it's pretty clean. So I'm just gonna put it in some water to dissolve that extra sugar, hot water. Okay. So last cake. So this guy's skinny, so I'm just gonna do one layer on it. So I'm gonna mark off where it's domed and just cut that off, and that'll be my other layer. Remember, just like 1/4 of an inch. Okay, it's starting to come out just a little bit. I'm gonna put it down, back down to 8. Okay, so a couple different things. If you're doing I know that the mayonnaise cake is a super moist cake. I never do this on this one, but if you're doing a cake like, let's say a different chocolate cake recipe, and you feel like it's a little bit dry, you can make a simple syrup, which is equal parts sugar and water. You can flavor it with whatever you want. So like we have all those Angel Bake flavorings in the kitchen if you wanted to borrow any of those, like almond flavor, lemon flavor, whatever you want your end cake to be, flavor to be. And think about that too, because like coconut and lemon, maybe not the best flavor combo, but totally up to you guys. It's your cake. So simple syrup is heating up equal parts of sugar and water and adding flavor to it, and then letting it cool down, and then you're gonna brush it onto your cake, and that'll moisten your cake, it'll flavor your cake, and it'll also hold some of those, these crummies in. So now that I have all of my cakes split, I'm gonna clean up my turntable, and I'm gonna get everything ready to go for decorating. So I'm done with my knife. I'm gonna put it over here. Remember, don't dump it in the sink. Okay, so I'm gonna clean up my area because I don't want this cake is gonna be so white from this frosting. I don't want little bits and pieces of the chocolate cake mixed into the frosting, even though I am gonna do a crumb coat on it. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna undo all my butter. So you wanna do softened butter. Remember, I'm doing a double batch. For a single batch, we'll easily decorate one 9-inch cake, but I'm doing a double batch because I'm gonna try to do 2 6-inch cakes and then a roll cake. So I'm gonna unwrap all my butter, and then you wanna get your piping bags ready to go. If you guys need piping bags or piping tips, I bought some extra sets, and they're just the little guys. Honestly, I prefer the bigger tips like these. I don't like using the couplers, but if you guys want a set, I have sets here, or I can give you some of the bigger ones to borrow. And I just do the basic, like the star tip and then the round tip, and I'll show you what I do for those. What else? And I'm gonna put a little bit of raspberry jam in the middle just to show you guys fillings, how to do fillings. So this is getting really thick. It's gonna take a little bit of time, and what you wanna do is feel the bottom of the bowl. You shouldn't feel any heat anymore when you add your butter. So it's still pretty warm, so I'm gonna wait to add butter. And this seems like a crazy amount of butter, which it is, because cake is a lot of butter and sugar, but that's why I like this frosting. This frosting goes on so smooth, and it makes decorating so much easier. It is a little bit extra work than like what Liz shows on the Sugar Geeks, like the basic frosting recipe, but it's definitely worth it if you want to make a nice smooth cake. This is what cake decorators use for wedding cakes, how you get those smooth lines. So I also have out here ready to go my 2 offset spatulas. I want my 2 offset spatulas, the large and the small one. I kind of go back and forth with them, and I also use this guy, so just a straight edge. And I gave you guys those plastic ones; those work just as good. So you can use those to do the sides. If you want a really smooth side, do a metal one, and I'll show you this, and get it hot, just underneath some hot water. Wipe it down, and then do the side, and it'll make it super smooth. So I'll show you in just a minute. So I also need vanilla for my frosting, which I have sitting here. Like I said before, the cake scraps, you can save them. Last year we made cake pops with them, or you can just snack on them. Okay, that's a crazy amount of butter here. Okay, so I have all my butter ready to go. Okay, so I'm gonna feel the bottom of this bowl. It's still kind of warm, or it still is warm. So I'm gonna wait a little bit. I am gonna turn it up and let it go on high before I start adding that. So I'll turn off the video. All right, so back to the frosting. If you touch the bottom, it shouldn't feel warm at all. I let that go for about 5 minutes. Actually, probably about 7 minutes total. So it's cool right now, so I'm going to start adding the butter, and I'm going to add the butter in chunks. So just like a couple ounces at a time, about that much, like a third of one of these butters. So that's going to deflate your meringue. And make it really smooth, and you'll start to see the butter in there. So it's getting a little sketchy because it's really full. Adding those in, and then I'm gonna let it mix. That's another reason to do really softened butter. That was a chunk that wasn't so soft. Okay, turn it down just a little bit until it gets used to all this butter. Okay, so this is a huge mixer, so I definitely recommend when you guys are doing this at home to do the single batch. Don't rush it, otherwise your parents are going to kill me because you're going to make a huge mess. So adding that butter in, so that'll soften out. What's catching on the whisk is the pieces of butter that are a little bit harder. So I'll let that mix for a minute, and then I'll turn up the temperature. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm back. All that mix was driving me crazy. So now all the butter's mixed in. I'm going to turn it on high, and I'm going to let it turn to frosting. I'm going to get this is the time to get your cake layers ready to go. Have your spatulas ready to go and start thinking about an idea. If you're doing a little bit of jam, you want to mix it up and make it soft and spreadable. I'm just using raspberry preserves that I got this morning, but they're pretty soft, and I'm going to make a wall with the frosting. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to put some frosting in a bag with just a round tip. I'll show you that in just a second. So I'm going to turn this up, and I'm going to let it mix quite a bit. And then I'm going to scrape down the side. You don't want big butter chunks. So if you hit a big butter chunk while you're icing, just you can pick it out, but you want all that butter mixed in thoroughly. I'm gonna also add my vanilla right now. So the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons. That's exactly what I have left in this little guy. Okay, so that's in there. And you can do too, if you want to do different extracts in there and not vanilla, you can totally do different extracts in your frosting. Totally fine. You can see, I wish you guys could see how smooth this is. I'll show you in just a second. So, super smooth. You can see that. It almost looks like marshmallow fluff. So, I'm gonna get this over there to wash and mix all this in. Another reason to wipe down your mixer really good before you use it. So, like I said earlier, I'm gonna get a little bit of frosting into a bag with just a round tip. So the easiest way to do that, I like to fold it over and then I'll put it over a cup or something like this and then load it in that way. And then it doesn't topple over. You want to make sure this is mixed really well, that the meringue is mixed in, anything that was on the sides is mixed in, because the butter's what's giving it stability. So now, I'm gonna load this in to my bag. Be careful, it'll topple over if you're not holding it. And I don't want too much, because I'm gonna do some rings in the center, and then I'm also gonna show you some borders with the round one. So that's as much as I'm gonna do. And then I'm gonna do a crumb coat on all these guys. So I like to use the big one for just getting the frosting on there, and then I switch to the little one for more detailed work. So when you're doing a crumb coat, not the worst idea to pull some of your frosting out, especially if you're working with chocolate cake, because you can see there's some crumbs on there, and I don't want crumbs on my outer layer. So pull a good portion, a couple cups of your frosting to do that crumb coat. And then I always pile it in the middle and then work my way out with it. So kind of spreading it like butter on toast. I'm gonna do 3 layers of this, 3 cake layers, and then the middle layer, I'm gonna put the jam, so I don't want it to be too jammy. So you want about at least 1/4 inch. You want at least half of your cake layer to be frosting. So half of that to be frosting. So I have that there, and then I'm gonna line them up. So I'm gonna put another cake layer down, and then I'm gonna touch right here, and I'm gonna go all the way around and make sure they're all lined up. If they're not lined up, then move them so they're lined up. I've definitely made quite a few cakes that I don't take the time to do that, and they end up being kind of like that windswept look, which isn't ideal. So again, go kind of pile it up in the middle. Do about, I don't know, 3/4 cup of frosting, and you can switch to the smaller offset if it's easier for you. So push from the outside, and I turn it as I'm doing the frosting. Okay, so just so it's kind of creeping over those sides. And then I'm gonna take my bag with the round tip and I'm gonna make a wall all the way, like right on the inside of the end, the end of that tip. Just like that, all the way around, and that's just gonna hold in my jam. You don't need to go all the way to the outside, you can go right on the inside of the inside of the outside. The inside ring of the outside, and then take your jam. Now remember, you want to kind of break it up so it doesn't have any big lumps in it. And you don't want a crazy amount of jam, just a nice thin layer. So like that, and then I'll just kind of push it to the side or push it out a little bit. You don't need to go crazy. It's kind of like when you fill sugar cookies, it's called flooding. This will kind of flood to that dam. Basically, you just built a dam for it. But I don't want it to be a huge lump in the center. So I'm gonna do that. And then I'm gonna do another layer right on top of there. So when I do this last layer, I'm also gonna line it up. So I'm gonna set it on where I think is center. So it's straight up. And then I'm gonna go around, I'm gonna feel it. If I need to kind of push it over, you still can push it over. Like that. So that's pretty even. So now I'm going to do the top. Spread it out. Remember, you're going to put a little more frosting on later to cover up anything, any like pieces of cake that are showing through or any crumbs that you see. So don't be super obsessive about covering stuff up right now. This is just so this is a crumb coat to seal the crumbs in. So I'm gonna try to flatten that a little bit. Then this is how I do it. You guys can take it and knock down the sides and just do this. I want you to do whatever is easiest for you. I like to hold it and knock down the sides like this. I have a 6-inch cake round, so I'm just going right down there. So kind of spread it and knock down the sides. If you need a little bit more frosting, you can grab it from your crumb coat bowl and add it to there. But I definitely, before you do that, I would practice just doing it on here. So you just need a thin layer to seal in those crumbs. So just like that. But you can see I have a little cake layer peeking through, and I'm totally fine with that. It makes my OCD heart hurt a little bit, but I know that I'm gonna go back and cover those up later. So it's okay. Just as long as a majority of the cake is covered up. Like that. So then, at that point, I'm going to clean off my spatula, and I'm just going to knock down, which I didn't clean it off very well because there's crumbs in it. Clean off my spatula and just knock down those sides that are creeping up. And this is a good point to take your straight edge or your butter cutter, and you can just go around the outside like this. And it makes it super easy to finish it off. A little bit of, and then if you see spots on there that are kind of indented, then you can go back. Let me try to find a spot. Like right here, you can go back and kind of smooth them out. Like that. So then I'm gonna be a little crazy. Smooth out that top again and knock down my sides, because once it's in the freezer, it's a little hard to knock down those sharp edges that you make there. Okay, so now, and then you can use a spatula that you've cleaned off to get underneath it and put it in the freezer. So you're gonna put it in the freezer or the refrigerator. Freezer 5 minutes, refrigerator 10 minutes, just to set that frosting a little bit. Okay, I'll be back. All right, I'm back. I forgot my guys. They're here. They're ready to decorate. Okay, so you guys want to make sure that you wash your tools before you start again, just to get there's always going to be some cake crumbs that just sneak in there. So this was sitting in the freezer for 5 minutes. It is very frozen, or it's very hard. So I'm just going to take my spatula and kind of kick off any of that frosting that's annoying me, that's kind of up on weird edges. And it's really easy to do when it's frozen like this. And it doesn't take long for that crumb coat to set, so don't leave it in longer than 5 minutes, okay? And you can also like I said earlier, run your spatula under a little bit of warm water and then wipe it off, and then it'll make your spatula warm and it'll help, or hot water, I guess. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of icing, maybe like a little less than a half of a cup, and then I'm gonna spread it to do my final coat. I don't love a ton of icing. I just want it to cover up any of those cake spots that are peeking out, or any of the crumb coat, or any of the crumbs that are in there. So I'm gonna get the top, and then I'm gonna knock down the sides, just like that. Knock down the sides. And it'll set up, this just little layer of icing will set up so quick for you, because it is so cold, so you kind of have to work fast. Okay, so I'm gonna grab just a little bit more and put it on my spatula, and then work it into the sides and cover up that cake. Try to cover it up as best you can. Some spots might be showing through, and that's okay. I think that that's kind of in right now. Like I can't remember what it's called, like peekaboo cakes, where you can see a little bit of the cake through. I know someone like Adriana's probably not gonna let that happen, but it's okay if it shows through just a little bit. And like I can see, I just pulled some crumb, or I can see some crumb, so I'm gonna try to cover that up. I like it to be a surprise what's on the inside. And I'm gonna try to smooth it out as best possible. You can keep pulling just a little bit of icing out. And remember, you don't want to glop it on there. This isn't a Costco cake. It doesn't need a ton of gross frosting. Actually, this isn't gross frosting, it's delicious frosting. But it doesn't need a ton of frosting because you worked so hard on the cake. Okay, so I'm gonna spin it. Try to even out any of those spots. Sometimes you'll get little pocks where frosting just doesn't want to live. Like right here. I'm just gonna put a little bit in there. But you can see, as I'm doing this, you want to do like a clean swipe like that. And that's pretty smooth. But what's driving me crazy right now is this like built up edge. So I'm just gonna knock over those edges again. And then I'm gonna take my butter cutter, my bench knife, and I'm gonna heat it up. I'm gonna try to get this top layer as smooth as I can. And I'm gonna take my little spatula and my butter cutter, and I'm gonna run it under hot water. wipe them off just a little bit. I'm gonna work with this first because that's the most important thing. So it has a tiny bit of water on it, and that's totally fine. It might even help you a little bit. So I'm gonna set it right on top of that cake round, and I'm just gonna spin it, holding it at the edge so it doesn't fly off. And that'll give you a pretty smooth surface, but you have to try to get it around the whole way without stopping to get that perfectly smooth surface. But that looks pretty good. So now I'm gonna go back, take this icing, go back and be obsessive about it. And get into any of those spots that I can see little like pock marks, like indentations is what I mean. Okay, so pretty happy with that, except for these little top pieces. I'm gonna push those down. Do one more swipe with this guy. And I don't think I'm gonna heat it up this time. I'm just gonna do it. And the more you do this little technique, the better you're gonna get at it, and the smoother it'll get, and the smoother it'll be. It takes a little bit to get it perfectly smooth, and I'm kind of rushing it, but so there's that. And then I'm gonna knock down the edges, and then I'm gonna do a few borders. So, same idea. So you have the bags, you're gonna cut off just the top of the bag. So I have just a star tip, and I have a little tiny star tip. Just gonna do a little bit of frosting in each bag. Just to show you. Okay, so get it all the way to the bottom. You can use those plastic bench scrapers that I gave you guys. You take them, pretend this is a plastic bench scraper, I gave you all mine, and scrape them, scrape that to the edge. Then it'll be nice and smooth and you won't waste any. So you can do a couple different things around the outside, but I just use the star tip. Really, a lot of people do just these, just like little kisses to border it. That's what I'm gonna do for this one. And you can do, I mean, you can do anything you want. I'll show you a couple more. Like if you wanted to do the outside, there's like a scroll pattern where you can do like a scroll like that and cut it off, and then right where you ended it, do another one the other way, and just keep going back and forth all the way around. You could use the round tip and just do, people love this one, I don't know why, just do like the little plops. This one you have to be the same size or it looks kind of funny. Or you can take the smaller tip and do any of those things. I'm trying to think of, or you could just do like right around the outside. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. I'm going to finish this off. And then I'll probably put like some sprinkles or something on the outside. So I'm just gonna just throw some sprinkles on this, and I'll show you guys the finished product soon. All right, last little one. I was just gonna show that scroll. So I start on the edge and make a little dollop, and then come around, make like a backwards S, and then right where you end up, go the other way, the other way. And then if you need to stop, you just stop on that curve. So just another little thing you can do. I also thought of something else that you can do. So with the sides, so if you take a small offset, get it a little bit more, and then you can make those lines on the side that you guys have probably seen. You just make all the way around. And then when you hit that first line, you go up a little bit. You just have to keep it continuous, otherwise it doesn't look very good. You can kind of see that there. Or what I like is holding it, and then you can make like, it's slippery though, little wavies, to add a little like ruffled texture to the side. Just go like right over where you stopped. The other one ends up looking kind of like that, which is kind of fun. And then there's the top, and I'm just gonna add some sprinkles. Call it a day. Bye.